Thank you, everyone, and I'll start by just offering a few remarks on this year's budget that is really delivering on the priorities that we had heard, not only through the most recent campaign, but up to since that campaign, and many of which we highlighted in the speech from the throne last fall at the start of this session, the start of this 4-year electoral cycle. So this is a budget that delivers on the priorities of all Saskatchewan people, Saskatchewan families and residents. And you'll see that play out in really 4 main budget themes that I have spoken to on a number of occasions. First, the effort to ensure that Saskatchewan remains the most affordable province in Canada to live. And with this budget, we are ensuring that that is the case for the years into the future. We're achieving this by reducing income taxes for every resident, for families, for small businesses that reside and operate in Saskatchewan. The second priority is better access to healthcare, to increase our access when it comes to healthcare. You're seeing a 6.4% increase in healthcare funding this year. That's building on an 8.3% increase in healthcare funding last year. Really significant increases to the largest portion of the provincial budget. And we're working to ensure, as I said, that we are going to have the opportunity for every Saskatchewan resident to have access to a primary health care provider. Working to ensure that all Saskatchewan residents have timely access to a surgery. And this is the investment that we are making in the Saskatchewan Health Authority, as well as other opportunities that we have to offer those services. You're seeing in this budget as well a significant investment and commitment to our province's classrooms, and thereby the students, the close to 200,000 students that are attending in those classrooms across Saskatchewan. $2.4 billion in operational funding that will be going to our school divisions so that they can operate the over 700 schools that we have. This is an 8.4% increase. This builds again on a 9% increase in education funding, in education operational funding last year. And we are going to continue to work alongside our school divisions to ensure that this the result of this investment is improving K-3 outcomes. And that is the goal and the focus of the government, and it's the expectation that this funding is used for investing in specialized support classrooms, for example, that are improving those outcomes for our children, students who are our children and grandchildren, in particular at the grade 3 level. And the sector's quite aware of how opportunities for students are greatly improved in grades 4 through 12, and I dare say throughout life when they finish grade 3 and are at a grade 3 academic level. So that's affordability, healthcare, education. Last, but certainly not least, is this government's continued commitment to making our communities safe for families, wherever you live in Saskatchewan. And it really can be summed up in 2 words: recovery and enforcement. At the very root of the challenges that we have in many, if not virtually all, Saskatchewan communities, and I would say Canadian and North American communities as well, is the poisonous drugs that we see coming into our communities, whether it be crystal meth or fentanyl. And so we are building out as quickly as we are able our 500 recovery spaces and making those available to those, unfortunately, that may have slipped into a life of addictions or need some mental health supports at some point. We are following that up with what we call an investment in 500 police officers across the province. That began years ago with over 180 police officers, the investment in providing over 180 police officers, largely RCMP, but also municipal. And they're very specialized in PAC teams, CRT teams, West teams, so crime reduction teams, police and action and crisis teams, and warrant enforcement suppression teams. Very specialized teams to catch the bad guys, so to speak, that may be in our province. We followed that up with a commitment now of an additional 180 RCMP officers to be recruited and find their way into communities across Saskatchewan to augment and enhance the enforcement that we have, and to take the drugs out of the hands of the drug dealers and the drug dealers out of our communities. Over 100 municipal officers have been added, fully funded, I might add, provincially funded municipal officers coming into the 7 communities that you have their own municipal police force. All of this augmented and supported by 70 marshals, 70 Saskatchewan marshals that will be available in the months and years ahead to really be able to deploy very quickly to support the enforcement efforts of municipal officers, of RCMP officers, conservation officers, and others across the province. And so this adds up to over 500 police officers in addition to 500 recovery beds and it includes significant funding to hire each of these officers. As I said, they are provincially funded, which is quite unprecedented when you look at the history of how we are funding law enforcement officers in our communities across the province. This budget is about delivering for Saskatchewan people. It's about delivering for you, each of you. This budget most certainly is delivering on behalf of the 4 priority themes that we heard from Saskatchewan people during the campaign and subsequent to that campaign: healthcare, affordability, education, and community safety. We followed up that campaign with further commitments in the speech from the throne. And as I said, this budget is delivering on all of those fronts on behalf of families across Saskatchewan. This is unlike what we see in some other areas of the nation right now, where we have provincial governments that are walking away from commitments that they may have made in the campaign, or walking away from commitments that they may have made over the course of the past year in the name of tariffs and other reasons that they may be faced with. And all those challenges are in no way diminished, as they are the most significant economic challenges that we have faced for some period of time. We are not walking away from the commitments that we made to Saskatchewan people. We most certainly are delivering on each and every commitment that we made in the campaign, subsequent to the campaign, through the speech of the throne, and delivering on them because that is what we heard was the priority of the people of this province. So thank you. Pardon me?
Why no contingency plan?
Well, I think, and I've talked with Minister Ryder about this because we did have the discussion, but, the first answer, there's a few points on that is, why would you at the outset of a budget just loan money? Pay interest on that money and have it sitting there in case you need it. The contingency levels that have been put in place in other provinces are all deficit financing, so they're loaning money to have those dollars sitting there if they shouldn't need it. Second to that, what amount? And we've seen varying amounts across the nation, which tells you nobody quite knows what the impact of the tariffs might be, and we don't even know what that will look like even in the near term. You don't know how long they'll be, what rate they'll be at, and whether or not they'll even be implemented. As we've seen the last 2 times, the U.S. tariffs have been proposed to be implemented, and each time have received a 30-day reprieve. We would hope that we, at some point, we're going to receive a permanent reprieve, not only on U.S. tariffs, but also on the tariffs that we have coming from China on canola and across Canada, seafood and pork. Going to present us with a very challenging situation when it comes to our canola crush industry and our agriculture industry here as well. And so the first answer to that question is, why would one loan money and at what amount when we don't know yet what that impact will be? The second answer to that question would be, as I said, it would all be deficit financing, and I'm not saying that there won't have to be investments as we find our way through the year if we get into a prolonged scenario of tariffs being applied. That would be something that we would look to work with whoever the federal government is at that point in time. But I would also say this. We need to be as innovative as possible in looking at how we support not only our Saskatchewan industries, but our Canadian industries across the nation. And I think you saw an example of thinking innovatively yesterday in advancing some of the procurement through our Crown corporations to support the steel industry, and more importantly, to support steel workers here in the province. And so there's different ways for us to look at this than maybe the ways that we traditionally have. And I think it's a time for us to certainly do that. Our goal always is and has been and always will be to not have tariffs imposed, and if they are, to have them imposed for the shortest period of time possible. The uncertainty that we're facing, and I would suspect the reason for the question and the discussion is we are facing in Canada 5 significant tariff threats. 3 from the U.S., 1 based around fentanyl and border security. 1 would be steel and aluminum tariffs, which are being applied today, which is part of the support announcement that you saw yesterday. 3 would be the reciprocal tariffs, where all 3 of those being U.S. imposed tariffs. 4 would be retaliatory tariffs by our federal government. and 5 would be the tariffs that we see from China on canola at 100% and seafood and pork at 25%. 5 significant threats, very uncertain times, and so there's going to be a significant amount of discussion moving forward. And I'll maybe preempt another question that will be coming with respect to, what's the plan? And because, we've been asked often, what the plan is in Saskatchewan. And I would say the plan in Saskatchewan, very much has been in play for 18 years now and continues to be in play today. But you saw Saskatchewan come forward with very much an aligned effort with respect to some countermeasures that each of the provinces took. And those are very aligned across the nation. And that came through discussion leading up to that point where the steel and aluminum tariffs were imposed. You're seeing Saskatchewan very much look at, how do we increase procurement not only to increase the Saskatchewan and the Canadian content, but how do we increase procurement through the strength of our growing economy in Saskatchewan to support workers here. And you saw that yesterday with our Crown corporations committing to the steel, pulling forward the steel purchases that they have to support the steel industry in our province in the near term. Our plan is to continue to ensure that the federal government is not going to impose export tariffs on Saskatchewan products. That would end Saskatchewan jobs as quickly as any of the tariffs that are going to be applied on products heading into the U.S. that are going to end American jobs, as well as potentially for a period of time those in Canada as well. Our plan is to continue to align with the federal government, with other premiers and industry leaders, as well as we engage with the U.S. so that the president and all of those around him understand precisely what the impacts of these decisions are. And our plan, and it has not just been the plan for the last number of days, but for the last, I would say, 18 years, is to engage and to diversify Saskatchewan markets around the world. That's why you've seen the significant investment in trade offices, in missions, and a significant, I think, effort and investment to touch those markets over the last number of months to ensure that we are stabilizing our market share in those places. Again, part of our plan, and always has been since before its implementation, is to advocate and to lobby the federal government to make the right decision, and they're getting there, but to make the right decision and remove the carbon tax on everything for everyone. And so our plan has been in place with our policy development over the last 18 years, unlike the opposition, where their plan has really been conjured up since the election of Donald Trump and has been in place for the last 18 days. And so significant differences between the two parties on what the plan is moving forward. Well, I think there's uncertainty each and every year. I would add that there's additional uncertainty this year with the 5 tariff threats that we're facing. But each and every year, in particular in a province that has grown our export value from 18 years ago, $17 billion to close to $50 billion the last 3 years running, there are risks. There's weather-related risks, whether those be on crop production, whether those be on the cost of fighting forest fires and the threat to communities, floods we have seen in years gone by. But I would say there's been market access risks in years gone by as well. This is not our first tariff situation that we have had to work through. We have often had to, in essence, follow the federal government around, fixing some of the non-financial tariffs, or, for example, phytosanitary tariffs in China. We had a tariff for a number of years in India that we have worked very hard on through our trade offices and the missions that we've been there to ensure that we can retain our market access of Saskatchewan products into those markets. And the result is we have 9 markets now that have over $1 billion of exports, which is a substantial growth in our diversification and less reliance on a market like the United States of America. There's variability on the revenue side in each and every budget. We saw that in the most recent budget just over a year ago, actually balance that budget, some of those revenue variabilities that are there. So I would say there's risk on the revenue side in each and every budget. What the finance officials are doing is using the best estimates that they receive from industry, from the banking syndicates, as well as other organizations that put this together. We use our best estimates, and then we as a government try to control what we can control, which is the expense side, which does mean there's some increases. Increases in education and healthcare, because those are priorities for Saskatchewan families. Increases in not only providing recovery opportunities, but providing over 500 more police officers to keep our communities safe. to enforce the laws that we have, in particular the laws when it comes to accessing poisonous drugs in our communities. And so I won't deny that there is risk. There's risk every year. With the 5 significant tariffs that are there, there is additional risk. And that's why we are committed to ensuring that we enact on the plan that we always have had in place, but the plan that we have put in place and are collaborating with other provinces and the federal government on as well.
By that metric, though, I suppose the budget says that it states, or it hopes for the tariff situation to go back to normal as of April 1st. That doesn't necessarily seem likely. And I realize that you spoke a little bit about the need to tax the economy against these sorts of fiscal strains. I'm just hoping to get a bit finer point on why there wasn't some additional consideration to the tariffs in the budget, because looking at the plan, there's scenarios, worst case scenarios that are gamed out, but it doesn't necessarily seem to address it in what's presented.
So I guess you would have to know from the President of the United States or from President Xi's perspective, which tariffs are actually going to be imposed, how long they're going to be imposed, and then you can calculate potentially what that risk might be. Then you also have to, and we met with numerous, I think 40 or 50 exporting agencies last week, exporting industries and industry players last week, who are working very hard to ensure that, they're insulating themselves to the best degree that they can with the 5 tariffs, including the tariff from our federal government, the retaliatory tariffs, insulating them to protect the jobs in their particular industry. And so there's a number of things at play in this space. One of them would be government support, whether it be provincial, federal, municipal, or joint support to support some of the jobs that may be impacted by these various tariffs. But to date, it's hard to ascertain what that number is. And I'd say the other opportunities that we have is what you saw happen yesterday, is where we're able to actually use the strength of the growing Saskatchewan economy that we have to support jobs that are here. And we need to look at various ways such as that across Canada. The counter tariffs that will be collected on the $30 billion of goods, potentially rising to $155 billion by the federal government. First and foremost, there's going to have to be a conversation around if the China tariff comes in on not only canola but seafood and pork. The federal government is going to have a conversation around how can they support those industries. This is the federal government's role, and I had said yesterday and last week that we would expect the new Prime Minister to reach out to President Xi before he calls an election. It's an important phone call to make and an important contact, I think, for him to make before he goes into a writ period, because in this case, the canola crush industry could be drastically impacted by the end of that period.
This is a surplus, and they get that it's not a lot for a government. This doesn't really feel like a surplus budget, I think, because of the general uncertainty. I very much get that from the comments here right now. Yeah.
2 years ago was balanced, as it turned out, actually. Sure. Yeah, or just over a year ago. Yeah.
And so we're seeing, of course, increased spending in these areas, but I mean, this doesn't necessarily seem like a celebratory surplus.
It's a balanced budget. And I think that really allows us to come from very much a position of strength when we face the uncertainty that we see coming. Not only is it a balanced budget and provides Saskatchewan government and residents and our general economy coming at this from a position of strength in a very uncertain time, but it's a budget that is delivering on the commitments that we had made, whether that be in the campaign or whether it be in a speech from the throne. This is a budget that is delivering on all of the commitments that the government of Saskatchewan or the Saskatchewan Party has made during the writ period and subsequent to that writ period when we once again had the honor to form government. That isn't the case in every province. You're seeing governments walk away from commitments that they most certainly have made in the most recent campaigns and made as a government. And so I think this budget that we're introducing is a balanced budget, and there is a lot of uncertainty ahead of us. I certainly am not going to deny that, but this puts our province in I think a tremendous position of strength relative to any other province across Canada today, as we've seen not one balanced budget released yet, and I don't know that you will, puts Saskatchewan in a very unique position of strength to face the uncertainty that is coming.
I guess that's really the main question is,
Yeah, certainly. And I think if you look just a year back, we had announced a deficit budget, and by the end of the year, it was actually balanced. So it does go both ways. As you know, we are, and we should never forget this. We're a natural resource-based province. We export to over 160 countries around the world, food, fuel, and fertilizer. We're trying to climb that value chain, increase the value of those exports, and we are. They've tripled in our time in government, thanks to the investments, faith, and what the work Saskatchewan people are doing each and every day. And so we're coming at this very uncertain time of these 5 very distinct tariffs that are facing Canadians and facing us in Saskatchewan from very much a position of strength. I don't know if you're going to have one other province that is going to start the year off from a balanced perspective. Where that goes, there are going to be variables on both sides. There might be revenue increases that we don't foresee coming in a very uncertain world. There might be some revenue decreases. There might be costs of tariffs. There might be revenues that come from the federal government in the tariff space. And so there is an awful lot going on today. Some would say too much, and I might be among them. But as I said, we're going to manage through this like we do each and every challenge that comes to the government of Saskatchewan from, in this case, very much a unique position, which is a position of strength. We are coming at this with a balanced budget that will be delivered today. It's a budget that is delivering on all of the commitments that we made as a party in the most recent writ campaign, and delivering on the commitments that we made in the speech from the throne just this past year. That is very rare, if not unique, across Canada when you look at the challenges that we're facing as Canadians today.
I'm just wondering if you think Canada should remove its tariffs on China.
Potentially, and I would say yes. And here's why. But before that, I would say this. There needs to be contact made. The Prime Minister of Canada, for however many more days till they enter an election at the federal level, does have the opportunity to reach out to presidency. And I would ask him to do so on behalf of canola growers who are Canadians in this province and across the nation. In addition to that, I think that mirrored ask could be made for those that are exporting seafood as well as pork and working in those industries. That phone call needs to be made. That contact needs to be made to President Xi, and a commitment to chart a path forward. The 100% tariff on canola oil and canola meal is going to be, if it comes into force, will be the most immediate and most impactful tariff that we have felt in this province for some period of time.
Mr. Poilievre is also promising to get rid of industrial carbon tax. We have our own OBPS system here in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
It is an industrial carbon
Yeah.
tax. Will you get rid of that?
Yeah, we have that because we were unsuccessful at the Supreme Court of Canada, and so it's mandated or has been mandated by the federal government. And I would applaud Pierre Poilievre and his party for running on removing the carbon tax on everyone for everyone. And I would even give credit where credit is due with respect to Prime Minister Carney on removing the consumer-based carbon tax, which is one step. One step of many steps that are there. We have the layering of the consumer carbon tax, the mandated heavy emitter carbon tax that we have here in Saskatchewan. And to answer your question, we're looking at what our opportunities are as we see federal leaders as zeroing out parts or the entirety of the carbon tax. And so we are looking, and you might hear more of that in the days ahead. Second to that, what we see is a significant layering of policies. Policies like the Clean Electricity Standard, policies like the oil emissions or the oil production cap that we see, policies like the changes to Bill C-69 that have ended a couple of significant pipeline projects in this nation, of which I think we desperately would have liked to seen built at this point in time, as we see over the last 18 days a number of political parties in Saskatchewan, and across the nation that are changing their policy and changing their position when it comes to building pipes, port, and rail and having them operate efficiently. They're changing their position when it comes to the importance of expanding the most sustainable energy industry in the world, including the oil and gas industry, which is largely centered in the prairie provinces. And so the last, this has been our policy for 18 years. We're seeing now the provincial opposition, even the federal governing party, the Liberals, who have been propped up by the NDP, also changing their position when it comes to the importance of these industries, the importance of these products in creating Canadian energy security and being more broadly part of the continental energy security that we need to be paying attention to as fellow North Americans.
I'm not sure what your answer was, so you are thinking of changing this?
We're looking at what our options are.
How do you justify adding $2.5 billion to the debt, raising debt servicing by more than $100 billion?
Sure, it's capital debt, much of it on the Crown side, as we see Sask Power building out and building not only, another natural gas plant, for example, building out and improving some of our infrastructure line. We hit 1.25 million people living in the province today. That's 250,000 more people that are in homes and having power delivered to those homes than what was under the NDP. And so, there's more people. There's more industry. We're seeing over $20 billion of investment, industrial investment just this year. And so much of the investment that you're seeing is on the Crown side, whether it be power generation, power transmission, whether it be building out our communication infrastructure with respect to SaskTel, and bringing, as you know, in Saskatchewan, we're largely using Sask Energy to heat our homes, and those are going into all the new subdivisions that you see in our cities and across rural communities in Saskatchewan. And that takes a capital investment, of which much like Saskatchewan residents will do, we will loan some dollars for what is essentially supported investment by the fees and rates that Sask Power, SaskTel, Sask Energy charge, of which are the lowest or second lowest in the nation today. And so much of that debt is on the Crown side, and on the executive government side, it's also capital debt that is there. We're building, for example, a new hospital in Prince Albert, Roster and Esterhazy. We are making a significant investment in the city hospital to open up over 100 new acute care beds to support not only the additional people that may need an acute care bed, but some of the flow through our emergency departments as well. And there's been challenges in that particular hospital. Going to be supported by urgent care center investment, again, which is capital investment, but increasing the number of acute care beds just at City Hospital and at the PA Victoria Hospital when it opens as well, to address a growing population. And so it is largely capital debt on either the Crown side or on the executive government side. As far as the operations of the government goes, which I think my predecessor often referred to as the credit card debt that may accumulate at times, it's not accumulating this year.
You talk about hospitals, your finance minister talks about schools when it comes to capital, but $100 million in servicing debt, that's going up with that $2.5 billion. That could pay for a lot of nurses, that could pay for a lot of teachers, that could be in those hospitals and schools.
Yeah, and with respect to balancing the investment that we're able to make, these are the decisions that a government has made. We're replacing 26 schools, I believe, this year. I think it's 17 new ones, but replacing over 26 schools just this year in this year's budget. Replacing hospitals and increasing the capacity of hospitals like City Hospital, adding a number of years ago the Jim Pattison Children's Hospital, adding capacity to the Victoria Hospital in Prince Albert, adding capacity, I think, to all of those facilities as we add urgent care centers into, again, one more into Regina, two into Saskatoon, Prince Albert, Moose Jaw, and North Battleford, which will help pull people out of the emergency rooms and allow them to access a primary health care provider sooner than maybe they could waiting in an emergency room, and relieve some of the pressures that we have there. These are all, I think, significant capital investments and choices that we have made, and there is an investment cost to those choices as we move forward, most certainly. But these are our choices, and again, on the power side or on the Crown side, those are choices that are necessary as well as we power a growing economy and power a growing population as more and more people are making the choice to live here today. As I said, I think the Canadian population counter had us at 1.25 million as of today.
With regard to healthcare, you your budget has some things in there to try to address those staffing concerns, but some of the things that take time, we're talking about seats in programs and whatnot, take time to get folks in. I guess how confident are you that you can achieve these goals with regard to access, with regard to surgical wait times, with those staffing concerns still present.
Yeah, I would just, point back to the budget is really supporting some of the ongoing work of the Health Human Resource Plan that we'd introduced a number of years ago, which really has 4 points to it, is to recruit, to train, to incentivize, and to retain healthcare workers. It's had $156 million invested in that, those 4 points over the last number of years. I mean, most significant among them, I think, is the expansion of training seats at all of our collective post-secondary institutes and a number of healthcare disciplines. As it's not no longer just physicians that we are challenged with recruiting. It's a number of disciplines across the way, and the best way to ensure that we have a healthy supply of qualified and trained individuals to offer healthcare in all of our communities is to train them right here at home. And the over 800 spaces that have been invested in, I think, are paramount in the long-term success of delivering and offering healthcare across the province. As I said, $156 million in that space. You're seeing that added to in this particular budget with additional funds in primary care and attracting and retaining primary care healthcare providers in our communities. But also, I would say peripheral, but very, very important investments in how healthcare is delivered with an increasing population. The increase in beds at City Hospital, the increase in acute care beds, over 100 acute care beds being invested in, the increase in acute care beds that will come on, and specialized beds at the PA Victoria Hospital, I think are both very significant investments for the entirety of Saskatchewan. The Prince Albert Victoria Hospital, with its increase in beds, is going to allow people that live in northern areas of Saskatchewan to have additional health care provided to them in the community of Prince Albert, and they aren't going to have to travel through to the city of Saskatoon, which is going to open up capacity in the city of Saskatoon. The additional beds at City Hospital in Saskatoon, the acute care beds, are going to open up additional capacity as well for the other healthcare centres in Saskatoon. And when you add urgent care centres into that space, you're going to see, I think, maybe not a reduction in the numbers that are going to our emergency rooms, but a finer point on who is in our emergency rooms and who is able to access health care, urgent care as opposed to emergent care at those urgent care centres in Saskatoon when they come, or any of those communities. And that's the goal. We may not see a reduction in patient volumes, but we're going to see people getting more adequate care in a more timely manner. That takes investment, and you're seeing us delivering that investment in this budget on a commitment that we had made in the speech from the throne.
One of the topics that you pledge and rural municipal leaders are asking for is to have safer rural municipalities. It was the hot topic at STARM. $6 million for 100 new municipal officers, which I'm assuming does not go to rural municipalities, it's going to go to the urban centers. 50 new officers for the Saskatchewan Marshals. That's going to probably, again, be in more urban centers. What's in it to make rural municipalities safer in this way? 180
RCMP officers, on top of the 180 that have already been invested in the specialized teams. In total, over 500 officers. And the marshals will be there to support all of the other enforcement agencies, whether that be the RCMP, largely in rural settings, or whether that be our municipal officers in our urban settings as well. At the end of the day, we need to get to the very root of what is causing the crime in our communities. And I would say the very root of that is fentanyl and crystal meth, illegal drugs that need to be removed and eradicated from our province and from our province's communities. Alongside eradicating that drug and the people that are providing that poison to our friends and family members and community members, alongside that, we need to provide a hope and opportunity for those that may have slipped into a life of addictions, and that's where the recovery investment comes. And so I feel that the investment that we are making of 500 police officers from various agencies very much is going to support every Saskatchewan community and every Saskatchewan family, regardless of where you live. When you look at how quickly the marshals can be deployed to anywhere in the province to support either an RCMP detachment or to support a municipal detachment with 10 or 20 or 30 officers in a very short period of time. Presence equals prevention, and that's what the marshals are there to do, is to support every other law enforcement officer in this province and to have their back when they need it.
But it seems like we're continuously chasing after the end goal of making our community safer. How is this budget going to deliver in 1 year's time that we come back here and say, are we safer? Is the fentanyl gone? Because it seems like we're not in a place right now, after almost 3 years of adding more police officers onto the ground, we're nowhere to be seen getting this to a safe province.
Yeah, so I would say the first step in is you need the recovery opportunities. We're working towards that and may have to go beyond the 500 beds. I've openly acknowledged that, unfortunately. Second is we're increasing the police officers. You also saw most recently our Minister of Justice, Policing and Corrections, Minister McLeod out, increasing the consequences for those that are bringing this poison into our community. Those are all important efforts and important initiatives, and I would say very much, policy initiatives that align with, where this government has been, not only just for as I said, the last 18 days, but the last 18 years in ensuring that we are investing in safer communities across the province. There is another piece to this. We need changes to the Criminal Code of Canada. And that has to happen regardless of who is going to win the next election. It should be discussed about during the writ period. The Criminal Code of Canada needs to increase the consequences for those that are bringing this poison or its precursors into our country, into our provinces, and into our communities. That is the final piece that is going to allow us to stand up and say, we're eradicating fentanyl and crystal meth from Saskatchewan communities. We're not allowing our family members and our friends to have access to this product. Because if you bring it in, the Criminal Code of Canada says you're going to go to jail, and in Saskatchewan we have the police officers and the will to ensure that that's the case.
Perfect, thanks everybody.
You talked multiple times about getting rid of the carbon tax, and with multiple EU countries requiring that their trading partners have a consumer carbon tax and pay the carbon pricing, we're limited at trading with the United States and China right now, obviously, and how do you justify that in your head by just limiting more of our trading partners?
I actually disagree with the entire premise of the question. I don't think there is an increasing number of countries around the world that are, they may talk about it, but are severely limiting the imports that would potentially come from Saskatchewan or Canada, of which are the most sustainable in the world. I would point to the Global Institute for Food Security study that we had released in Dubai at COP28 on Canadian canola, for example, and Saskatchewan canola most particularly, which is 65%, has a 65% lower carbon content than the next 7 largest producers around the world. Field peas was 92% lower. I think lentils were 130%, if I remember correctly, or I might have those last two reversed. But the same is true when it comes to oil production. Our methane emissions are down 65% here since 2015. No other industry in no other area of the world can state those types of facts. We have to my knowledge, the only net zero oil company in North America and likely in the world that is operating in the Midale-Weyburn oil field area. When you look at our potash, it has half the carbon content of potash. It comes from nations like Russia and Belarus. And so when I look at the future of what the world is going to need, they're going to need not only more of what Saskatchewan has because of the product we provide and the price we provide it at, but because of how it's produced. We are producing the most sustainable products on earth with or without a carbon tax. And I would say that in most cases, the mandated carbon tax from the Liberal NDP federal administration that we have had is harmful to us creating jobs and attracting investment in this province, and it's harmful to our ability to provide more of that sustainable product to more global citizens.
Perfect,